the world has changed, right? And some might argue that it's changed for the worse. I would personally argue that the world has, in a way, changed for the better. And when I say the world has changed for the better, I mean it from the sense of we now have more options for how we can live our life. We now have more options for how we can contribute to the greater good. We now have more options to express our own inner greatness and our own inner creativity. And to talk about these different options that we have in the world today and how we can tap into our own power, tap into our own greatness, we have a very special guest with us today. And his name is Simon Trevarthen. And for those who don't know Simon T., he is a premier speaker on resilience, inspiration, and innovation. As a presenter, Simon has the rare ability to energize audiences while delivering personal, professional, and business growth insights. He's the founder and chief inspiration officer of Elevate Your Greatness. And Simon focuses his energy on helping others find and ignite their passion for achieving their greatness. He's facilitated hundreds of sessions and sparked energetic conversations about innovation and business transformation. And while he's global in viewpoint, he's local in impact. He's been an executive, consultant, and speaker in Africa, the Middle East, Europe, and North America. And Simon has also worked as a journalist and international spokesperson for major humanitarian organizations in conflict zones. So we're speaking to a man here with a wealth of knowledge and experience. Simon, it's a pleasure to have you on the broadcast.
Thank you, Brandon. It's great to be here.
I wanted to dive into greatness with you today. And the whole theme of today is how we can unlock and find and strengthen our inner greatness. But let me ask you this first. As we enter this new chapter of our world with virtual opportunities and with a lot of people wanting to leave the workforce and go remote or even start a business around this, with this new chapter, what do leaders and entrepreneurs need to know?
That's a wonderful question. You know what? I mean, let's just say this is a time of opportunity. If you go back in history, times of recession and depression is actually when great companies are born, because cracks open up in the canopy of the jungle, new customer and client needs happen, and that's where entrepreneurs can really thrive, in those cracks and seeing those cracks. I think one way to view this, though, as an entrepreneur starting a business or trying to thrive in this environment, is understanding your magic 2%. The reality is your customers don't care about the mechanics of what you do. It's those little slithers, those little tiny things you do that differentiate you from the competition, and it's the mark of your true greatness. Let me give an example. Four Seasons, the great hotel brand, a luxury hotel brand, it is seen as a little bit above all of the other five-star hotel brands. Why? Now, they've actually done research into this, and they have exceptional customer service, concierge service, the works. But when they actually asked their customers, the people who stay in their hotels, the people who are loyal to them as a brand, it was sometimes the humblest of things that made a difference. One of the things they found out was that they allow you to choose your pillow. There's a menu, literally, and you choose your pillow. Now, if you're a business person who's flown to right across the world, having a good night's sleep is what you want, what you need. And having the pillow of my choice on that bed means I get a better night's sleep. It is that magic little 2% that is their differentiator, that why people keep on coming back. And so I think in this environment, COVID, post-COVID, is finding those 2% of magic in terms of the experience you offer, the product, the service that make you special, because else you're just a commodity in the marketplace. And what you want to be is something miraculous in the marketplace.
Wow, very interesting. So let me ask you this, because this is, by the way, I've never been asked what kind of pillow I wanted when I went to any hotel. And if I was asked that, I would immediately post on social about it. Like, I've never heard of that before. So that's extraordinary. The average person listening right now, right? 25, 35 years old, maybe in their 40s, 50s, whatever it may be, right? They're in a business, they're working in a career, and they want to unlock that 2% of magic inside of them. How can someone determine what about them is unique so that they can operate from that 2% of magic? How can a normal everyday person tap into that 2%?
I think Finding a 2% is a complex business, but it's the most profound business. It's about finding your purpose.
Mm.
And purpose is found, it's not given. So it does take an exploration. Often we think of the external realities of purpose. We think if we get a certain degree or certificate or get a career success, that is purpose, but it's not. You know, Steve Jobs wasn't driven by making a lot of money. He was driven by making beautiful things. And so I think when you come to that, what makes you remarkable is think about it basically your internal side and your external side, what you show up to the world as a leader, as an entrepreneur, as someone who's trying to inspire people. And ask yourself on many dimensions, in terms of your creativity, how much does creativity, how much does what motivates you internally? And list those things and say, how much am I living up to them today? Because often those internal motivations is what actually makes you the greatness you want to be. And how much we live, because often we find that we have passions that we've forgotten about. I've met entrepreneurs who are later in their careers, later in their lives, who've lived an entire corporate life and then have rediscovered passions from their childhoods that they've turned into successful businesses. And often society, our peers, the naysayers around us say that'll never work. The naysayers around us say you shouldn't risk that. But often that self-discovery is where you find your purpose. And often our passions have been muted or literally press mute button. And they're from our childhood early. The things that really connect to our spirit and our soul, that's the kind of the archaeological dig, if you want to know, to find that what is remarkable about you, that then will be remarkable to others. Because let's be honest about this. People who are charismatic, inspirational, magnetize the people around them. It doesn't matter what they do, but they electrify the people around them. And people want to be around them and want to work with them. But more importantly, they want to buy from them.
Absolutely. So I want to touch on a few things you said there, right? The thing I want to touch on first is you mentioned tap into that passion that may have been muted even by your early environment, your childhood, people around you, the naysayers. I've talked with a lot of people, and that word purpose it's a very big word, right? And when you break it down into those things that you said, reignite that passion. What if someone looked at you, Simon, and said, well, I'm not even really sure what I'm passionate about. I'm not really even sure what this difference in me, this greatness can be. Is there like a process that you guide people through to self-discover that and bring them out? And if so, what does that look like?
Yeah. I mean, one way to think about this is the Olympics are happening in and around now. And what we're seeing is the world's best athletes in every field, in every sport. And the world puts them in accolades when they get that gold and they stand on the podium. And the difference between someone on the podium and someone who came in 10th is milliseconds sometimes. But let's be honest, the world congratulates and celebrates the person who got gold. The person who got 10th is known by their mum. They both worked as hard. I mean, Muhammad Ali said that I didn't become a champion because I was a great boxer. I came a champion because I did miserable, rainy workouts at 5 o'clock in the morning. And so I think it is understanding the building blocks of your purpose. The reality is it's a rocky road. Building your purpose is a rocky road. Sometimes an abject failure changes the world. If you want to see an example of an abject failure, Vincent van Gogh, the great painter, never sold a painting in his life. I think he might have sold one. But in 5 years, he changed Western art and changed the way we see color.
Wow.
But this was what drove him, was a ferocious need to express his purpose in color and paint. And he changed our world as a result.
Yeah, and I think if I'm correct, he really didn't even make it there until after he wasn't even here anymore. He became giant after he left this earth.
Yeah. And I think he died, and that's when he became famous. But a key here is you build a wall by small bricks. And what I mean by that is, and this is a great idea, I'm going to talk this from Edison. And Edison, as we all know, was a great inventor. By the way, an incredible entrepreneur. I think he had 5,000 patents under his name. But what people don't know is when he died, is that he had 30,000 notebooks of ideas.
Wow.
30,000 notebooks of ideas. Literally every idea this incredible man had, he wrote down. And so what he would do every day is he would wake up, or throughout the day, every idea he had, he would write down in one of these ideas notebooks. And at the end of every month, he would say, which of these ideas is worth it to carry forward to the next month? Which one has legs? Because we have hundreds of ideas, and some of them are useless, some are great, and some are just plain average. But I ask your listeners and your audience, how many ideas did you have already today? Probably half a dozen, maybe a dozen. But the problem is they floated away like butterflies. You didn't capture them. So I would suggest to your audience is this: commit to an ideas journal. And if you really want to supersize this, commit to an ideas quota, 5 a day.
Wow.
And you could do that with your team. With your team, by the way, commit to a quota. Everybody comes up with 5 ideas. I mean, some will be good, some will be bad. Some need to grow into other things. But if you commit to that over a month, 2 months, whatever, you will have books of ideas that you can harvest for your purpose, harvest for your products, harvest for experiences, but also through that process of creativity explosion, just like Vincent van Gogh, who would paint a masterpiece every day, many days. You sharpen your pencil around purpose, what you're motivated by, but also, most importantly, that sense of what makes you special and unique.
Yeah, I find that fascinating because even when you start doing this, it may be difficult for us to consciously come up with 5 different ideas, right? And we're going to be coming up with them throughout the day as well. So this is a journal you could take with you on the go. It's a journal you could do in the morning. You could do it at night after your day's over. You know, what I think is going to happen, because I haven't done this specific exercise, but I do a gratitude journal. And at the beginning of doing my gratitude journal every morning, I would struggle to come up with new things that I'm grateful for. And I'd have to really sit there and ask, what am I grateful for in my life? And what I assume would happen with this is the more you do this, the more ideas you're going to come up with, ideas that would never have come to you unless you had given this practice dedicated time. Now, Simon, do you recommend that every day after we write down those 5 ideas, we choose one to carry into the next day?
You can do that, or you can review it at the end of the month. It doesn't matter what your methodology is. The fact of generating and forcing yourself to generate is a force multiplier. That's the key. You're capturing your thoughts. I mean, some of this is based, by the way, it doesn't even have to be sitting down. It could be pure observation. If you want to know what the heart of innovation is, it's seeing unmet customer needs. And so being in your life and seeing people's frustrations, they can't do something, it doesn't work, it could be done better. That's an idea spark. It is not a finished product. It is not something to take to market. It is a spark of an idea that can be something exceptional. So observe, open your eyes, use all 5 senses and see what frustrates people, see what electrifies people, and use those ideas and just add them in. You can draw, it doesn't have to be words, it doesn't matter how you catalog it. But the question is, you're actually, I mean, there's an old line from psychology, which is what's wired together works together in the brain. And so by sparking all this creativity, you're actually wiring your brain in new and fresh ways.
Awesome. Very cool. Thanks for going into that. Now, let me ask you this in terms of greatness. Bruce Lee had a quote where he said, "I fear not the person who has practiced 10,000 moves one time, but I do fear the person who's practiced one move 10,000 times." So now that we've asked ourselves these questions, we've got the idea journal, we've recognized our greatness and have begun to extract this 2% of magic inside of us. Would you, well, rather than ask you a closed-ended question, let me ask you an open one. How would you recommend somebody to improve in their area of greatness? And would you recommend they focus on that solely rather than other things?
That's a wonderful question. I mean, here's one way to think about it, which is how people talk about themselves. And I've sat on interview panels, I've sat in rooms full of lawyers and all sorts of professionals, entrepreneurs. And 80% of people, the mass majority of people, when you ask that question at a party, they what do? They honestly give you a basket of skills, a basket of skills. Well, I'm a project manager, I'm a coder, I'm a this, I'm a that. The problem with describing yourself as a basket of skills is all skills are commodities.
Mm.
So what you're saying about yourself, and it's about electrifying other people, motivating them, is that I am nothing more than the supermarket trolley and all of the tins in that trolley, because those are my skills, and that is my value to the world. Now, skills harnessed to craft through years of application is something different, because every true great craftsman has harnessed and added something special, their own personality. But most people describe themselves as skills. More sophisticated, executives might be a little bit more sophisticated and talk about themselves as experiences.
Mm.
I had this experience in leading this team. I was a sales, this, what, that, and the other. But still, the reality is it motivates very few people, and it doesn't really motivate you. What is fascinating about people who talk about that greatness, that 2%, is they switch the conversation and say, literally in that first 20 seconds, what drives them?
Mm.
What drives them? What are the 3 things that drive you? Imagine meeting someone at a party and you meet someone after 20 seconds and say, you know what drives me is A, B, and C. And you want to hear what they are, even if you disagree with them. And they're in a totally different sector. They're driven by someone. Someone's passion is magnetic. And what drives them? And if you don't believe me, read Nelson Mandela's Long Walk to Freedom. At the very beginning of that book, he literally sitting around an old wooden table. And he said, I am personally driven to change this country. He didn't download an app, right? He committed and was driven by that experience. Now, if you really want to supersize this and really go to town, what drives you? Add this layer on. What is the unique value you bring to others? So not just what drives you, but what is the unique value you bring to others? Now, as I said, I've done this with lawyers and other professionals. And most of them, by the way, have been to similar schools and have similar qualifications. There is some differentiation in terms of experience, criminal lawyers versus contract lawyers, etc. But the ones that really are doing exceptionally well knows what drives them. But what is the unique value they bring to others, an organization, a group of people, a clients? Knowing that question helps you identify your unique differentiator, what makes you special, the magic 2%.
Wow, I absolutely love those questions. I was going to ask you, what specific questions could you ask in order to unlock what that greatness looks like? Because I believe questions are very powerful, and you've proven that. So what 3 things drive you? Imagine asking someone that at a dinner party. No one asks questions like that, right? They ask, like, what do you do? Stuff like that. That's a awesome icebreaker. What unique value do you bring to others? So everyone listening, ask yourself right now, what unique value do you bring to other people? And you might be thinking, well, I'm not giving people things, but you are, right? You're giving them your energy. You're giving them your love, your compassion. Even a listening ear is bringing value to somebody else. So let me ask you this now, because I know some people are listening and they're like, okay, this is great. Like, I know that I bring compassion to an interaction with somebody else, but how can I use that skill, that greatness inside of my existing corporate environment where things are set in stone, where there's specific rules and expectations? How can someone really shine with their greatness inside of a team? Because I know you've worked with a lot of teams. So what does that look like generally?
Yeah, there's always a dynamic in a team, and we know there's always politics, there's resistance. I think as someone trying to make change, you're an innovator, particularly in large corporate structures and big organizations, if that's your kind of the world you work in, is if you really are driven by something and it's not surreptitious, think about what kind of camouflage, corporate camouflage you have as an innovator. Do you blend in until the moment is right and you strike with the opportunity?
Wow.
Do you actually think about trying to adopt the language? Every corporate culture has its own language, the things they use. So you literally try and be something. It doesn't mean you're being inauthentic, but you're like almost flying under the radar, putting your ideas through. Or do you, like the zebra? I mean, the zebra's whole intention is not to be camouflaged, it's to dazzle the lion so that it misses.
Wow.
So if the lion misses by 3 feet, the zebra is alive. So the third kind of camouflage you can take from nature for an innovator trying to make change is that dazzle camouflage. Dazzle people here, but be making change in another area. The key always with an innovator in a corporate setting or a complex organization is allies.
Mm.
Think a lot of people think in trying to make big changes, if only I talk to the king or the queen, the CEO, everything would be right. And like, it's the peasant going to see the king about the problem. Rarely does that actually work. It can work if that CEO is really dynamic. A more effective strategy is literally ink dots. Take your organizational chart, everybody in the organization, and do an ink dot of who do you think is more open to change, open to innovation, and build that indirect influence strategy, the ink dots. And as they swell, you gain influence without forcing your ideas, but you're moving and tipping the tipping point in the organization. So indirect strategies around tipping points, ink dots of influence can actually help you provoke, startle, and create change.
Super insightful. So blend in and, in a sense, camouflage until you find that the ideal time is right to exercise your unique gifts, to exercise your talents. I relate to that a lot because I come from sales and I moved up into leadership with sales, and I moved up inside of it's a private company, but it's very much big enough company where those corporate rules still play. And I've had to blend in and, in a sense, play the game that was there. And there's no denying it's a game, right? It's all a game. What we're doing right now is business is a game, and there are rules. And I would blend in and play the game. And when I found an opportunity to strike and really exercise my skills, I took the opportunity. And those small opportunities were the stepping stones that allowed me to have more of those opportunities and continue to rise up in the ranks. Let me ask you this. Other than your greatness, what other universal skills should we be practicing at this time with the way that the world is, both in business, as a leader, and even personally? What are some important universal skills we should hone?
I think at this time when people have had tragedies, personal tragedies, when people have lost businesses and there's also been opportunities, I think the skill to build is your question of resilience and understanding how you build your resilience as an individual, as an entrepreneur, but also how you project resilience and build the resilience in others. And I think at this time, COVID, post-COVID, there are 5 ways you can do that. Is literally, if you're talking to your team, acknowledge, ask them the question and acknowledge what they've been through. Many people are grieving for the lost past. We're not going back to last February. The future will be a hybrid, and they're grieving for what we did before. So acknowledge that, but then go the next piece and ask them to accept. And acceptance is not surrender to fate. Acceptance is understanding the situation, the reality we're in, whatever that may be, and then finding the points of control, humble or huge, the points of control that you can actually leverage, that you can actually exercise. You accept the reality, but then finding those points of control. The next question is then to adapt to the world. If the world is not going, the world never goes backwards, it goes forwards. So adapt to this new reality and find the opportunities. Optimism is the code word for excellence in this world. And, I've even found in my work, which is a lot of speaking games in person, I've now done keynotes in Asia and Europe without ever leaving my house and my home studio. That you can have a global impact wherever you sit and have opportunities to build relationships wherever you sit. So I think the adaptation is key. Again, the last thing is this: act. Do something today. Progress, and there's no Chinese proverb, which is like every great journey begins with one step. Act. Do something towards a bigger future. Do something humble that builds upon today. And again, if you think about that, acknowledge, that acceptance, that adaptation and action, it builds you a momentum that actually pulls other people to what you're doing. It builds your resilience. Now, another way to think about resilience is actually taken from, if you read some of the literature of people who've been through incredible adversity. I read Admiral James Stockton, who was actually shot down over Vietnam, was held in Hanoi, the Hanoi Hilton. And what they found is that many of those POWs who spent years in captivity and they were tortured almost daily, actually, when they came home, they actually had much lower post-traumatic stress rates. And it doesn't make any sense because they went through basically hell. And what they found is that many of them focused on physical fitness despite being starved, their bodies, but they also built a community, right? A community. And communities are the way, that connection, and it's difficult in COVID. Communities are the way we thrive. So when somebody was shot down, they made sure they mentored that individual about what the reality was, so they can go through that process of acknowledging, adapting, and acting. And more importantly, aside from that mentorship, but the community, they actually were the supportive framework. I mean, what is an organizational culture other than the supportive bubble that you're in? And I think those kind of elements can be replicated in any business to build resiliency so that you don't break under the pressure of current circumstances.
Well said. Is that the main work that you do, is work with businesses on incorporating that framework for resiliency?
In part, I mean, I do a lot of work around helping them find their purpose and that magic 2%. And what that means to customers, because it doesn't matter what it means to you sometimes, what it means to your customers. And a lot of that is actually walking in your customer's shoes, really walking in their shoes and understanding their experience from all 5 senses. And that helps you refine, because often it is that little bit that actually makes the difference. I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
You've never wanted to buy a computer in your life. You've never wanted to buy a smartphone in your life. What you wanted to buy was an object that enabled you to get to work or watch a movie or do email or go on and do social media. That's what you wanted to buy. The vehicle is irrelevant. If you buy an orange and achieve those things, you'd go to the store and buy an orange. And so the magic of this, if you remember going back to the Steve Jobs, was that he realized when the first, those colorful computers he first launched.
Yeah.
What was magical about them? It was this: you took it out of the box, you pressed on, and it worked. Because people don't want a computer, they want to get to work. They want to get on with their job. And so previous to that, all the other computers, they sent you disks and all sorts of weird and wonderful things you had to upload, download, all this kind of stuff. People don't want the vehicle. They want the outcome, the impact. And so many businesses fret over the vehicle, the mechanism, not the impact. What are your customers? What problem do they really want solved? Doesn't matter how you do it. What problem do they really want solved? Focusing on that helps you focus on what is most important to them. And by the way, the greatest value in the marketplace.
And let me ask you the big question, which is why. I've had a lot of people ask me, why is it important for me to really understand my purpose? Because that's a very ethereal word to a lot of people. Why do you believe it's important for us to have that magical 2% that makes us different? Why is understanding our unique strengths and purpose important for our career and our business? What's the main outcome and reason why?
I think at the end of the day is having a clarity around your purpose, your why, as it will be, is your starting point in times of trouble, starting points in times of uncertainty. And by the way, the other thing to understand is your purpose changes throughout the stages of your life. The suit you buy at 20 may not fit at 30, may not fit at 40, may not look completely weird at 50. So your purpose will evolve and adapt as you see life's experiences. Many people go through a crisis or a personal challenge, an epiphany, and they change fundamentally who they are. We are creatures of adaptation. And so I think it's important to be in tune with who you are and what you want to be now. I know many people, young professionals, they were told, get a good degree, get lots of good degrees, go into a corporate job, and you're sorted. And when they got there, they were miserable. And it took them several years because, they fill up their life with toys and, all the kind of things you can buy with those salaries, but they're utterly miserable. They're gutted in terms of their purpose. And it was only when they did that simple, humble work were they able to change and pivot their life to something that really made them sparkle.
It sounds like understanding what it is that makes you special really gives you a reason to get up in the morning and go do what it is that you do, whether it's with a company or a business. And I know that there's some people listening right now who might have worked harder than ever during COVID. Some people lost their job, laid off, but a lot of people that I know, especially, were worked even harder, especially now. Places are short staffed. They don't have the employees to come in. I know local restaurants that we used to go to weekly that are closed right now because they don't have the people to help. For those people, Simon, who are overworked right now, for those people who might have an idea of what their greatness is, but they're not even really able to flex their greatness in the way that they want to in their current working situation, what would you recommend to people who feel stuck where they are right now, who want a different lifestyle for themselves? They might have to go to work right now. They might be doing what they don't love. What would you recommend to those people once they've discovered their innate abilities and their greatness?
I think knowing your purpose is just part of the journey. It's a little bit like your phone. If it's at 5% and you're trying to use it, it goes down to 2% and a thing. If you're constantly running at 5%, it's really not effective. So the question is how, and it's a personal decision, what helps you recharge? Phones are only effective at 30% and more, right? They rapidly use their battery. What will help you recharge right now? And a lot of that, we live in a world of distraction, streaming movies and this kind of stuff. What would be a book or a distraction, or more important, getting out in nature, going for a walk, clearing your mind, right? Adding those things into your schedule, however huge. I'm not saying you climb Mount Everest. I'm saying you literally take a walk around the block at the end of the day, clears your mind, empties out those things. Think about your sleep patterns. Think about your nutrition. Think about your exercise and your exercise regime. Think about your friendships and your connections. All of those can help recharge that battery, get you past 20% to 40% and 60%. Because if you really need energy to make a change, you have to find the energy and create that energy in yourself. And so come up with your personal playbook of what excites you and helps you recharge in these difficult times.
That's incredible. Have your own personal playbook of what's necessary to recharge your battery. That's great. I know that you've got an online course out right now that could help people to recharge as well. And your course is called Spark Innovation Without Spending a Dime. So tell me a little bit about this course. What's the outcome that you hope for people that go through this course? And what was your motivation for creating it in the first place?
Yeah. So it's an online course. It's around helping business people, entrepreneurs, understand and create innovation. So it takes you all the way through from creativity. How do you spark creativity in yourself, in your teams, all the way through to how do you understand customers and customers' needs, all the way through to how do you sustain that change with people. So it's a really end to end. So the importance is this, is that we often think of innovation, and it's a big word. We often think of it as shiny technological things.
Mm-hmm.
It's the new electronic car. Innovation is so many other things. It could be the business model you use, how you work. It could be the product, the service, but it also could be the experience of what you do, how people interact with that unique experience. So innovation can be humble or huge. It doesn't have to be dramatic. It doesn't have to be technologically enabled. It often is, but it is ultimately this. Innovation is about ideas of which you turn through action into something of value. Now, value to whom? It's in the eyes of the beholder. They must see the value, want to buy the value, and it solves a problem they have. If you're able to take an idea into action and create something of value, you will have a winning product and an innovation that's actually helping to change our world.
That's amazing. Where can we find this online course?
Yeah, so I think the link's going to be in the in with the session notes, but you can see the course on my website, which is elevateyourgreatness.com.
Excellent. Everyone listening, elevateyourgreatness.com. The link is in the description. Go check it out. How much does it cost people to go through this course?
So we have a promo with the show today. So it's free to go through the course today. So there'll be a promo link. And so it's really an opportunity just to, at this time when there's so much opportunity, there's challenges, but so much opportunity. How do you spark innovation and create something that, again, that is going to become legendary?
And my last question for you, Simon, is what is the positive difference that you want to make in the world yourself?
I get the greatest energy when I help others find and spark the creativity which is within them. I think there are so many ways in which we are told to put ourselves in boxes, and I don't like to think beyond the box, as it were, but actually to electrify people, motivate and inspire them to become the better versions of themselves.
That's an incredible mission, and I think it's been made very clear based on the work that you've done, your course, and everything that we talked about today. So, Simon, I thank you for your time today. Thanks for sharing your wisdom, and I look forward to talking to you again in the future.
Thank you. It was wonderful to be on the show.
That was Simon Trevarthen from Elevate Your Greatness. Again, to take advantage of his free course that he's going to allow you to go through right now to spark your own innovation. The link is in the description. Go check out that course. We talked about everything from greatness, finding your greatness, utilizing it in business, utilizing it in entrepreneurship, what to do when you feel burned out, even once you've found your greatness, the questions to ask. A lot of different things we talked about today, and I hope you took away one thing that you'll use today. And like Simon said, what will you do today based on what you heard, based on these different questions? What will you take action with? How will you be resilient in today's times to come out on top and maybe even change your trajectory altogether for a greater outcome? The number one way that you can support the Be Better broadcast is if you found value from this show today, if you took away one thing from this discussion with Simon, be sure to share the show. Share it with one person who needs to hear this information as well. One person who's in the situation of some of the hypothetical characters we talked about in the discussion. Share it. Let it change their life. Let it inspire them to action. And thank you for watching. And until we talk again next time, continue to be better.